ಎಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ ನಮಸ್ಕಾರ ಸ್ನೇಹಿತರೆ. ಧನ್ಯವಾದಗಳು ತಾವೆಲ್ಲ ನಿಗದಿತ ಸಮಯಕ್ಕೆ ಬಂದಿರೋದಕ್ಕೋಸ್ಕರ. ಇವತ್ತು ಕೇಂದ್ರ ಸರ್ಕಾರದ ಇಂಧನ ಸಚಿವರಾದ ಆರ್.ಕೆ. ಸಿಂಗ್ ಅವರು ನಮ್ಮ ಜೊತೆ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ. ಅವರು ತಮ್ಮನ್ನೆಲ್ಲ ಉದ್ದೇಶಿಸಿ ಮಾತಾಡಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ಇಚ್ಛಿಸೋದ್ರಿಂದ ತಾವೆಲ್ಲ ಆಹ್ವಾನಿಸಲಾಗಿದೆ. ಧನ್ಯವಾದಗಳು. ಜೊತೆಗೆ ಕೇಂದ್ರ ಸರ್ಕಾರದ ಇಂಧನ ಇಲಾಖೆ ಕಾರ್ಯದರ್ಶಿಗಳಾದ ಅಲೋಕ್ ಕುಮಾರ್ ಅವರಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಜೊತೆಗೆ ಹೆಚ್ಚುವರಿ ಕಾರ್ಯದರ್ಶಿಗಳಾದ ಅಜಯ್ ತಿವಾರಿ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ. ತಮ್ಮೆಲ್ಲರ ಪರವಾಗಿ PIB ಕರ್ನಾಟಕ ಪರವಾಗಿ ಎಲ್ಲರನ್ನೂ ಸ್ವಾಗತಿಸುತ್ತೇನೆ. ಈಗ ಸನ್ಮಾನ್ಯ ಆರ್.ಕೆ. ಸಿಂಗ್ ಅವರು ತಮ್ಮನ್ನು ಉದ್ದೇಶಿಸಿ ಮಾತನಾಡ್ತಾರೆ.
Good afternoon, everybody. This year, India is chairing the G20 group. Now, G20 is a collection of countries which together comprise 85% of the global GDP and 77% of the global trade, and about 2/3 of the world's population. So this group is perhaps the most powerful group in the world. What this means is that the future roadmap, as finalized by the heads of governments of these G20 countries, will be laid down here. This meeting is one of the preparations, a drafting session, so to speak, of one aspect of the G20 declaration. And that aspect is energy. In fact, this aspect is the most critical aspect today. You can't develop without energy. Development means energy. At the same time, you have a global climate crisis. We need to make sure that the emissions are brought down. The world needs to make sure that the emissions are brought down in order to restrict global warming to below 2 degrees centigrade. Aspirational is below 1.5 degrees centigrade, but that is aspiration. 2 degrees, keeping it below 2 degrees is achievable. Even 1.5 will take some work. But keeping it below 2 degrees can be done. So in the conference today and tomorrow, we will look at the different challenges to the energy transition. There are challenges of technology. There are challenges of finance. There are challenges of supply chains. Critical. 3 critical challenges. Now, earlier the discourse was entirely focused on energy transition. In my address today to the countries, different countries, I said that the discourse needs to expand. You cannot only talk about energy transition. You have to talk about energy access. You have to talk about energy security. There are about 600 to 800 million people without access to energy in the world. We achieved universal access in 2019 by connecting 29 million people. But we have the resources, we had the resources. We constructed 173,000 circuit kilometers of grid lines connecting the whole country into one grid. We had the money and we have the expertise, so we could do it. But not the poorer countries in Africa. They need assistance. And without access, if 600, 800 million people don't have access, you can't go to them and tell them to think about energy transition. You can't go to them and tell them that don't cut wood for fire, for running your kitchen. That's the only option they have. And then you can't even talk about the deforestation, etc. And energy security, supply chain disruptions. This is what we have just been through as a world. This is what I will emphasize as a world. Energy security hit even the developed countries when supply chains, when their supply chains of gas, etc., were disrupted, and they are still facing problems. And basically, when faced with the issue of energy security, for that country, energy transition pales into a background. For them, energy security comes first. Not only for them, for every country, energy security comes first. If it's a question of energy availability being under threat, then that country will not bother about energy transition. It needs energy to survive. Without energy, you can't. Your lifts won't run, your ventilators won't run, nothing will run. So the discourse has to expand. It has to include supply chain security, it has to include energy security and affordability, it has to include access. And of course, you can't have energy transition without technology. Now again, in technology there is a lot of work to be done. This is what I pointed out. Storage, for example. You can't have round-the-clock renewable energy without storage. Because the sun shines during the day, it doesn't shine at night, but you need electricity at night as well. And similarly, wind blows, does not blow. You need electricity round the clock. So you need storage. Now storage is very expensive. It is expensive because not much has been done by the world. By the world, I mean developed world, for building up capacity, storage manufacturing capacity in quantity, and for increasing the demand for storage. That is something which we collectively as a world have to do, to make storage viable and available. Without storage, you can't ask countries to move away from fossil fuels. And all fossil fuels stand on the same pedestal. Whether it is gas or coal or shale, you can't discriminate between one fossil fuel or another. They all emit carbon dioxide when burned. So if somebody is burning gas for its base load for making electricity, you can't say stop using it until unless renewable energy becomes round the clock. Very simple. But that is something which needs to be emphasized. So this is a critical discussion. This is a discussion where we have laid out what our concerns are. Our concerns are not for ourselves. Incidentally, we have emerged as a leader in energy transition. We are the only major economy whose energy transition actions are consonant with a sub-2 degree rise in global temperature. The only major economy, mind you. The Climate Tracker, it's an international group, came out with global rankings of countries on climate action, and we are in the top 5. And we are the only major economy in the top 5. The other 4 economies which are there in the top 5 are small economies. We are the only major economy in top 5. And we had pledged in our NDC that by 2030 we'll have 40% of our capacity coming from renewable, non-fossil sources. And we achieved that in November 21, 9 years in advance. No other country did that. We also pledged in COP21 in Paris that by 2030 we will reduce the emissions intensity of our economy by 33%. We are already at 30%. We reached 30% somewhere in about 2021. We reached near about 30%. In 2019 it was 29. We haven't measured it, but I think in 2021 we would have reached 30%. So again we'll cross that. And no other country has done that, achieved its NDCs so rapidly. So we are a leader in energy transition. But, we don't have to explain ourselves. So what I am voicing is not our concern. What I am voicing is the concern of the developing world. In fact, the concern of the world. Because today, as we saw in the disruption post-COVID and the disruption post-conflict, that the issue of energy security has hit developed countries as well. So what I am saying is not something only true for developing economies. Now, the developed world has realized it's true for them as well. So that, in brief, is what we are here about. And I believe that it's actually very critical. This is for the world. Thank you.
ತಮ್ದೇನ ಪ್ರಶ್ನೆ ಇದ್ರೆ ದಯವಿಟ್ಟು ಕೈ ಎತ್ಬಿಟ್ಟು ಕೇಳ್ಬೋದು. ಹೆಸರು ಹೇಳಿ, ಸಂಸ್ಥೆ ಹೇಳ್ಬಿಟ್ಟು.
Yes, but you can't ask me in Canada. You have to ask me in English.
Roadmap, what is the target?
Roadmap for?
For the energy transition.
No, you see, we had laid down, my Prime Minister had laid down a roadmap in COP21 in Paris in 2015, that by 2030 we'll do this. Can you hear me? Yes. By 2030 we'll do this. We've already achieved it. One we have already achieved, the other we are near achieving. So our Prime Minister laid down another target, a higher target for ourselves and for the world, for us, that by 2030 we'll have 500 gigawatts of our capacity from non-fossil sources. So we shall achieve that. We have 500,000 megawatts
30% of the requirement.
by 2030. That will be near about 50%. In fact, it will be more than 50%. He said 50% of our established capacity by 2030 will be from non-fossil sources, which is mainly renewable plus nuclear. Our nuclear capacity is just about 6,800 megawatts, so it's very small. The remaining 1,70,000 megawatts is solar, wind, hydro. And incidentally, have another about 75,000 megawatts under construction of solar, wind, hydro, etc., not counting nuclear. So I'm already at 250,000 megawatts. So I have to add another 50,000 megawatts by 2030, which we shall do. We have plans already for manufacturing. That's another thing which we have done. Green hydrogen. We have emerged as a leader in green hydrogen. We have launched the hydrogen mission. I already have plans for about 6 million tons of manufacturing 6 million tons of green hydrogen. That will require an established capacity of 150,000 megawatts of renewable energy capacity. I'll be there, don't worry. Let the other countries think about themselves. I'll achieve it.
So when we are pushing for renewable energy sources, what explains commissioning these coal plants which are not?
Now, basically, I said this bluntly in the conference. I said this bluntly in other conferences as well. And I explained it to you in detail. Probably you missed it. You see, you can't have in a total energy transition until unless you have round-the-clock energy. That means you feel cold at night, at 12 o'clock, you need to be able to switch on the heater. Now, you can't do that with the solar and wind without storage, right? You need a base load. You need a dispatchable load which will be dispatched whenever it is required, not necessarily when the wind is blowing or the sun is shining. Now, for dispatchable load, you need storage. Storage is not viable. Incidentally, I came out with some of the biggest bids of storage around the world. We are a world leader. So we came out with a bid for 1,000 megawatt hours of storage. The cost was 10 rupees per kilowatt hour. My energy cost is 2 rupees 40 paise per kilowatt hour, 4 times my energy cost. How is that fine? And then I have to give subsidy. And then we came out with another bid for 3,000 megawatt hours. And no other country is doing this. These developed countries have been talking about the energy transition and climate action and how we all need to do it, take climate action. But I don't see any evidence of that. So we are having to do it afresh. Once it becomes viable, then yes, then coal will be retired. Otherwise, sorry, no. Write it down. Write it down that I am not going to compromise with the availability of energy for the requirements of my growth and for a better level of standard of living for our people. We are growing at 7%. We will grow at 8, 9, 10, 11%. We shall provide the energy which is required. Where it comes from, whether it's fossil or non-fossil, and wherever it comes from, we shall provide the energy required for maintaining and retaining our rate of growth. If storage becomes viable, I'll use round-the-clock renewable energy. If not, coal. Absolutely. Other people have gas. They use gas. And that also, emits carbon dioxide. It also emits methane, which is worse.
So, as a follow-up to that, in your opening remarks, you also raised concerns about lithium availability.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now we just tackled 2 supply chains. There's another supply chain in the offing, issue in the offing, and that's for the new age energy systems, lithium. 89, to my information, 89% of the lithium reserves in the world have been tied up by one country. I won't name that country. Anybody else?
Sir, my name is Vijay.
I won't call people. You will have to call people.
Vijay.
Yeah, yeah. We got all the details from Mr. Arun Kumar a couple of days back about investments required about Green Brigadiers.
Huh?
Green Brigadiers concern with the
Green?
Green Brigadiers, those who are worried about the nature. They say
Environmentalists.
Huh?
Green Brigadiers.
Environmentalists.
Yeah, they say,
Call them environmentalists, yes.
They say there is adverse impact.
But they should be happy about what I am doing. I am a leader in environment action, yes.
They say there is an impact. Adverse
Despite the
impact.
fact that our per capita emissions are the lowest in the world. Yes.
They say that there is adverse impact on solar panels if it is put on the hill stations, everything.
If it is put on, nonsense. And just like saying that the sun has an adverse impact. We are alive because of the sun. It's because of the sun that we get our food. Yeah.
Sir,
Please introduce yourself a little bit
And then he'll call up.
Chiranjeevi from Deccan Herald.
Huh?
Chiranjeevi from Deccan.
Chiranjeevi from Deccan Herald here, sir. Your ministry is obviously, I mean,
We are a leader
if you look at
in
the
everything we
budget,
do.
If you look,
Yes.
If you look at
We
the
transformed
budget,
our country from power deficit to power surplus. Today my established capacity is 408 gigawatts. My peak demand is 215 gigawatts.
Yes, sir. Your
We
ministry-
converted our country into one nation, one grid,
Yeah.
capable of transferring 112,000 megawatts from one corner of the country to another. We connected every village, every home. You saw the Times of India article? India is shining about 150% brighter than it was, in 2013 or something.
Definitely,
Yeah.
sir. The point is, though, I mean, if you look at the Ladakh scheme, your ministry is leading in many ways. This viability gap funding for 13 gigawatt.
Huh?
The budget announced 13 gigawatt
Come to the
viability
question
gap
now.
funding.
Huh.
So the question is, in rural areas, however, the emissions are going to increase because of the high prices of LPG, and then the PM Ujjwala scheme, allocation has come down
Actually,
drastically.
you see, the LPG I see as an interim stop, right? It's not the final stop. The final stop is electric cooking using green energy. That's the final. That's the dream I have, and that's the dream that the Prime Minister has. But Ujjwala is a halfway stop. It is better than firewood. It is better than dung
Isn't
cake.
it too soon to end it is the question.
Huh?
Before you offer an alternative to the rural people,
Yeah, I know.
ending the scheme right now, I mean, it's almost ended now with this budget. The allocation is very, very low. What do you think is the alternative that you can offer to the rural people?
We have given the connections, but as far as the poor people are concerned, they are getting the subsidy on the LPG cylinders. They'll continue getting that. If more allocation is required, that will be made. No issue. Yeah.
Sir, you talked about green
Bosky,
energy.
please. just
One at a
state
time.
your name.
Sir, I'm Bosky Khanna from Indian Express newspaper.
Yes, you have been raising your hand at number.
Yeah, you've spoken about green energy and solar and wind, but what about grid strengthening, sir? That is not being touched.
Oh yes.
There is
Oh yes.
a lot of work which needs to be done, even when the central government or any state government announces on ground. There are a lot of gaps and leakage. How do you want to address it? Because a lot
No,
of-
in fact, I thought I had explained myself. I thought that what we have done has not been done ever before. We've added 173,000 circuit kilometers of grid lines. We did 2 rounds of green grids, and now the first round was completed. The second round is under construction. The third round we are starting. We've set up 13 renewable energy management centers. We have established SATCOMs at all different places. So our grid is healthy. It is absolutely secure despite the large quantity of renewable energy I am putting into it. And in order to expand the grid further to accommodate 500 gigawatts, we have drawn up a plan which will entail an investment of 2.4 lakh crores. So, in fact, this is today the strongest grid in the world, and this is what makes my green hydrogen the most competitive. Because no other country you have a grid which can transfer so much of power from one corner of the country to another, and they have split grids, not one grid covering the country.
Maintenance of the present ones,
Beg pardon?
maintenance of the present ones and upgrade.
They have to maintain an uptime of 99% to be paid the tariff. Otherwise, they don't get paid the tariff. 99 or 99.5.
Our grid has a availability of 99.7%.
There you are.
One of the best in the world.
There. If you don't maintain that uptime, you don't get paid. Yeah, it's it. They don't have. Yeah, he will call out. You raise your hand, he'll call out. Yeah.
So Pramod Raghavan from Bharat. आपने अपने opening remark में काफी कुछ बातें कह दी हैं.
In English, otherwise they won't understand. Yeah.
नेशनल हिंदी चैनल तो हिंदी में
हाँ.
मैं ये कह रहा था कि सर मतलब आपका इसमें क्या टेक होगा कि ओवरऑल मतलब एज ए लीडर, क्योंकि आपने काफी चीजों का जिक्र कर दिया है, हमारे सामने अब और क्या चुनौतियां हैं जिनको अब और ऊपर
ह्यूज चुनौतियां हैं. हमको ऑफशोर विंड करना है 30,000 मेगावाट्स ह्यूज. ये हमको ग्रीन हाइड्रोजन के लिए 60 to 100 गीगावाट्स, हम 100 गीगावाट्स मान के चल रहे हैं. मैन्युफैक्चरिंग कैपेसिटी लगानी है, ये फ्यूचर है. हमको स्टोरेज के लिए बैटरी स्टोरेज मैन्युफैक्चरिंग लगानी है, ग्रिड स्केल स्टोरेज के लिए ह्यूज चैलेंज है. और ये सब के लिए हमको फंडिंग चाहिए. चलिए और बोलिए. हाँ, अब ये सभी लोग जिनको, सभी मंत्रालय जिनको फंडिंग चाहिए वो जहाँ कहाँ जाते हैं? मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ फाइनेंस वहीं जाते हैं.
Hi sir, I have two questions.
Please tell your name and
Then I recognize her. But you asked your questions in Delhi. Come on, I'm joking. Yeah.
No, it's related with the meeting.
No, I'm joking. Carry on.
Yeah. So, for India, on the sidelines of this event, has there been any sort of collaboration with any countries for energy transition, especially the green hydrogen mission? And the second question is with regards to the you talked about efficient and low cost energy transition. So has there been any such suggestions or actually any decisions?
We are having an agreement with Malaysia.
I think our ESL is doing an MOU with Malaysia for the efficient street lighting, and tomorrow is
Tomorrow?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's going to be announced tomorrow?
Yeah, it is going to be.
Yeah, it's going to be held. It will be signed tomorrow. Anybody else? Thank you.
I heard this proposal to privatize ESCOMs.
Who?
There is a proposal to privatize ESCOMs.
You don't privatize discoms. You don't privatize discoms. What you do is, that's my take. What you do is that you bring in competition. So the present discoms remain, but they should be asked to compete so that you, as a consumer, have a choice. And if that discom is not performing and somebody else can give you a better service, you can switch, just like you switch your mobile service provider. That's my vision. So the amendments which I have sort of brought actually are a step towards that. You see, the concept of and the provision for multiple licensees operating in the same area of supply has been enshrined in the law in 2003. The 2003 Act provides for more than one licensee, multiple licensees operating in the same area of supply. That means competition. Now there is one clause there which is not, allowing this to sort of really take off. It is going on in Mumbai. In Mumbai you have multiple licensees, but it's not taking off because of one difficulty. It's that difficulty we are seeking to remove through the amendment. But that amendment has nothing else, just that amendment which will make sure that the provision in the law, which already exists from 2003, for multiple licensees operating in the same area of supply, that provision becomes effective.
The G20 countries have different goalposts as far as transition is concerned. What is India's takeaway from this? What will be India's takeaway from this meeting? What are you expecting that
That meeting is in progress. Yes, it has concluded.
But there would be something that you have in mind.
No, you see, as far as NDCs are concerned, they are not announced in this forum. The nationally determined contributions are announced in COP, Conference of Parties. So the different countries have already announced their revised NDCs. Many countries have announced the revised NDCs in Glasgow. Actually, the original NDCs were announced in Paris. And then some countries which wanted to upgrade their NDCs like we announced our upgradation in Glasgow. This is not the event. Yeah.
I'm Narayankar from UNI. I was just going through your article published in Telegram, I believe.
Huh?
I was going through your article
In that you have mentioned, like commodity prices are rising and tight market conditions are increasing energy security risks.
Energy?
So, security risks. I am
Yeah,
reading
yeah,
out
yeah.
from your
Yeah,
article.
yeah.
So these are the challenges, lying in making affordable energy. But you have not explained how it will be done. If you have an answer, I need an answer.
No, you see, when you put up a solar power plant, you need a number of different metals, elements, etc. You don't have a control over that. They are all, subject to international competition and markets. So what will happen? I mean, if the prices keep going up, is that the energy costs will go up. You can't help it. Like the energy costs have gone up 5 times, 6 times in the developed world, so you can't help it. That is something which we are subject to. Today the whole world is globalized. We are subject to that. If the price of gas went up to about $40, it went to 40. Now it is less. Now it's about 30. But that meant that 22,000 megawatts of our gas-based capacity became idle. I can't help it. Yeah. Next. Anybody else? Thank you. Thank you. Bolo, bolo. Come in front. Come in front. Let's see you. Yes.
Sir, when we talk about requirement and the demand of...
Yes, really, ದಯವಿಟ್ಟು ಎಲ್ಲಿಂದ ಬಂದಿದ್ದೀರಾ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿ.
My name is Madhu. I head the ANI bureau here in Karnataka. Sir, when we talk about the requirement and the demand of energy throughout the global, do we have the sources for that? Exactly, when it comes to India, we have many different aspects to think about it. But
every country will have a country-specific mix, depending on whether their wind resources are better, or their solar resources are better, or whether their hydro resources are better. So every country will have a country-specific mix. I'm only talking about the renewables. But you take fossil fuels as well. Somebody will have coal, somebody will have gas. So it will depend on the country-specific sort of endowments. Thank you.